Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today is Tuesday. ArenaNet just released a trailer for next week's Living World Return, the second half of Season 2, and my god, the hype levels are real. So it literally just came out. I will make one note here. I'm not going to be talking about Abbadon too much in this video, since I did just record about a 20-minute video on another teaser screenshot they released in a live stream earlier in the week. Finished recording it, and no sooner as I'd put the mic down, I realized they've released this damn thing, this huge trailer with so much more information. So we'll get the Abaddon stuff in one lovely 20-minute long package sometime tomorrow. But let's talk about the trailer itself. Looks like the new patch is called Echoes of the Past, which is not what I was expecting. They've been throwing around this like tag, points of no return for so long now. Well, it seems like it's Echoes of the Past, and my belief is we're going to be getting a vision next patch that shows us something to do with Abaddon and significant things going on in the past. Probably the best thing from this entire trailer is the appearance of good old Ogden Stonehealer. ArenaNet did tell us, hey, we're going to be doing a lot more strong ties to Guild Wars 1. This is the kind of thing you can either believe them at first glance or sit back and wait and see them prove themselves. I believe the inclusion of Ogden Stonehealer in this next patch is huge, and I'll explain that to you guys as we go through. So let's do a frame by frame. Most of the trailer is old stuff. It's from the first half of Season 2. It shows us, shots of Drytop, the destruction of the Zephyrite airships, the tendrils coming out of the ground, the Eternal Alchemy vision we saw, the vision we were given from the Pale Tree, Belinda, and much more. It's not until near the end of the trailer they actually start giving us new shots. I'll run them through you guys. The first one may look a little bit like the Black Citadel at first, but this is definitely a new area. It looks like not a part of Drytop we've seen so far. It looks like the Char have begun to construct forward barracks. Don't forget that the first half of Season 2 was us convincing the rest of the world we had to go to war with Mordremoth. And now that war is on. So what I believe we're seeing here are the Char, or namely the Pact, setting up bases beginning for this offense. The reason I say the Pact is you see this airship in the background? That flag hanging from it? Yeah, that's the Pact symbol. This is a Pact airship we're seeing here, and I believe these are Pact forces. Traherne is really pulling through for us in a pretty big way, it would seem. Of course, there is the added excitement of the fact this is a totally new area of the map. My hunch is this will be north of the Drytop stuff we've currently seen. Either it will still be called Drytop, or it will just be a whole new map entirely. I'm leaning on a whole new map entirely. I know that Drytop itself, if you break out of that map, it looks way bigger, and it seems like there's loads more space for the devs to do stuff. But looking at the way that they've structured the rewards there, the meta with the tiers, raising the favor of the Zephyrite, I think it's really well balanced right now, and they'd probably do better just adding a new stat set to the game and saying, hey, look, here's a new map with a very similar kind of functionality. These are really strong ideas because they keep people in those maps long after the story has moved beyond them. Anyway, it goes without saying, a lot of these shots coming up are from this new area, map, whatever. The next shot just looks like it's inside of one of these Char structures with the airship floating overhead, and we can see Blood Legion warriors running around. It's cool to see these guys. I think the Blood Legion Char are the absolute most boss Char that they have in Guild Wars 2, and we've seen so little of them recently. These guys are fighting, defending, doing their thing, and again, if you look closely in the background, you'll see another Pact symbol on the far wall, and hey, one right there in the foreground. So this is definitely Pact stuff being set up. It looks like it's just a rough framework for a building later, so I wonder if, because this is Living World, they're really going to try and flex their Living World muscle, and as the season continues, we'll actually watch these places become fully fledged structures. That would be cool. I just don't know if they have the time or the assets, or whether it's really worth it for them to do. Anyway, so the next shot shows us a wonderful airship. Yes, Pact airship, Pact Air Force, which we only saw in great distances back in the Zaitan story arc. We saw them way up in the sky battling with dragons. We see them pretty close, firing artillery at enemies. Not in this shot in particular. This one we just see some, it looks like a dust mite right in front of us, some kind of ship that's been blown out of the sky, and probably most excitingly to me, some ancient ruin. This architecture isn't anything I recognize immediately from GW1. I may regret saying that since it was quite expansive and there was a lot of stuff, but you can see that there are these stone pillars, ancient carved pathways up the rock, left behind by someone perhaps many, many years ago. I don't think that this is necessarily new stuff. Any current civilizations living around here, I think this is ancient ruins. More modern stuff would look a lot more like Prosperity, which is really the only example of civilization we've had out here the entire way through the story so far. So who left this? Who knows? We know that the White Mantle were hiding around in the Maguma jungle for a while. We know that the Druids used to have significant influence here. Are these from before the most recent 250 years or from the gap? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to go and explore and see. I like these layers of history coming back now, though, because previously from what we've seen in Drytop is, yes, it was a phenomenal map, but there wasn't any hints at ancient civilizations that have been living there until now. So the next shot is showing us an assault, a Mordremoth assault on some kind of gate. I believe this could be the bandit fortress we see in Brisbane Wildlands. We've known for a while that something to do with that fort was going to be involved with this patch. The very first image they released ages ago now showed us that gate. And what I think we're doing here is looking at it from the other side. We're seeing the Mordremoth attack it, blow it open, and this could be our entry to the new zone or new area, if indeed that is what they're going with. Or even, hey, just an alternate entrance to Drytop. There's nothing that says Drytop can only have one connection to the rest of Tyria. What is also cool here, though, is the giant Mordremoth plant. Looks almost like a Venus flytrap. In my opinion, looks like some kind of spawner. We've got to destroy the spawner to stop the Mordremoth relentlessly coming out of it. Could be some new mechanic we'll have to play with when we're fighting them. And I find it kind of funny that in this shot, they're all making a beeline for the gate, which has been broken open, while quite clearly next to it is a huge damn hole in the wall. We'll notice later in the trailer as well, there's various siege being used. It looks like a wall has been broken there, just like you'd expect a wall to be broken in Wild vs. World. You can see on the side of the gate is a portal there, a grey looking white portal. Very similar to Wild vs. World. What if that gate was closed? Are we just going to have Wild vs. Worldish mechanics coming into PvE now? That I very much like the idea of, a much more dynamic battle based on the principles of Wild vs. World, but that's taking place in the PvE environment. Maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. Who knows if they can actually pull this kind of thing off. But it is an exciting thought, isn't it, that we're actually at war with one of the Elder Dragons, and there is dynamic trading of territory going on as this fight progresses. That would be pretty interesting. And after all, isn't that what dynamic events were always supposed to be? This is just driving them even further in that direction, right? The next shot, we see artillery fire coming from the pact airships, having an immediate visceral impact on battles going on in the ground. In fact, there's a little Asura there wearing COF armor, looks a lot like my Asura when she's in her assassin stuff, getting slammed by some of this artillery. What an exciting idea! And you could key that even further into what I was just talking about with having these dynamic changing territories. Maybe players can have some influence on where these airships go. Completing certain events really successfully allows your airships to push forward, destroy certain areas. What an exciting idea. This shot also shows an arrow cart, as I mentioned earlier, again being used up on a cliff. We may just be seeing a lot of siege. That's not totally new for the game. You may even remember at Fort Salma, where you can now find Belinda's ghost. There always was siege up there. There were trebs up there and they had insane range. It's just they were never really used for anything. You look at one of the first maps they ever made that we were ever shown as players, Blaze Ridge Steps. And on that map, there was so much siege and stuff that could be used in the brand to fight people, to fight the Shatterer, but it was always underpowered. Now we have an arena net that understands their meta a little bit better, understands damage that's worthwhile a little bit better, and maybe this stuff will be, there will be serious incentive for us as players to use it all, and it will make the battles a lot more exciting. Big, large-scale Zergy battles more exciting, with more options for us to do, instead of actually just being a part of the Zerg. The next shot isn't so interesting. It shows us a more jungly area, an oasis-y type area of the new map, with one of these enemy Mordremoth that we had seen in the previous half of the season. The only thing I really have to say about this shot is it gets me wondering how big the new area is. Obviously, that's one of the big excitements. A lot of the trailers can be deceiving, though. It looks like it's vast, and then it ends up being a much smaller slice than you'd expect. But if we assume that those rocks in the background are actual places you can get to, maybe it'll be bigger than we're expecting. If you pause right at the perfect moment too, you will notice in the distance there seems to be some kind of structure. Now maybe that's just a rock, but it looks a little bit to me like some of the ruins we saw on the Tarnished Coast when the Asura first came to the surface 250 years ago. Those ruins were speculated to have been made by the Masart, for what it's worth, and people have been kind of excited about the Masart coming back into the story for a while now. White Mantle influence in the story, maybe that's the civilization that left these ruins? It's probably too much to speculate on for now though for me. More ruins in this next shot. Look like they're actually being lived in, though. There's some cloth draped over one of the sides. And a new variety of Mordrem enemy here. This is a big-ass cave troll-looking Mordrem guy. Can't speculate too much on exactly what his mechanics are going to be, though I'm excited to fight him. And he continues being in frame shortly after we see this airship swoop in. And it's as I'm saying, look, this airship is flying around right near us as we're fighting just regularly in the game engine. These don't seem to be cutscenes. They just seem to be part of the battles. That is very exciting. So then they tell us Season 2 returns and hurdles to an unforgettable end. We get a really wide shot of the Dermond Priory. And then after the Dermond Priory, an image of Abaddon with a very interesting looking painting on the ceiling above him. This is what I have an entire video talking about. Who is Abaddon? Why might he be in the storyline? Look out for that tomorrow, I guess, guys. But this is incredibly exciting, and what may be even more exciting than that is there's translatable text above his head. Why is Abaddon coming to the story? Who knows for sure right now, but they do transition this into a shot of the library in the Dermond Priory. And the next few shots of the trailer all seem to depict stuff to do with Marjorie and Lady Casimir invoking some kind of vision. That's what it looks like to me. They're going through some kind of portal, getting some kind of vision, and they're getting it from the aid of Ogden Stonehealer. Now, we only see a tiny part of him over his shoulder, but if you guys don't know who this is the last dwarf we know about who's above the surface. Dwarfs were huge parts of the story in the previous Guild Wars. They were dominant in many areas of the Shiver Peaks. However, at the very end of Eye of the North, which marked the end of Guild Wars 1, the dwarves underwent a ritual called the Rite of the Great Dwarf. They turned themselves to stone, stripped themselves of something of their mental aptitude, perhaps even their ability to reproduce, and they became these sentinels, these eternal warriors built to keep the Great Destroyer and Primordus and his minions at bay deep beneath the surface. So the entire race just descended slowly over the next 250 years and became this almost thing of legend. In the personal story, they did set up the fact that Ogden Stonehealer, who was a great companion and ally of ours in the first game, probably one of the coolest, most important dwarfs from the previous game, except maybe the king of the dwarves, King Jarlis or Kilroy Stone King. This guy was someone in the first game who you could give armor, you could give gear, you could set his build up, and he would fight along with you. And it is revealed in Guild Wars 2, during the personal story, that he is still on the surface. But his role in Guild Wars 2 was pathetically small. You could only see him if you took a very specific branch in Dermond Priory storyline, and then he'd randomly appear again right at the end of the game in a Ra Explorable. And in both situations, he barely had anything to contribute, barely anything was explained about him. He was just this poorly done cameo. And while, yes, I was excited to see that he was in Guild Wars 2, I have always been sour he had less of a role to play than he should have. Well, now we're back to the Elder Dragons. We're back to core story stuff with Guild Wars 2, and here he is assisting Marjorie and Lady Casimir, two characters we know were sent to the Dermond Priory from the end of the last patch, and now it looks like he's got something very cool to show us. The next few shots show them in some kind of crystally looking hallway. It looks a bit ugly in my opinion, I've got to be honest, but I believe this is them transitioning into some kind of vision, and given that they just showed us a shot of Abaddon, I believe that vision may be revealing some interesting truths about that character and his motivations giving magic to the races of the world. There is also the very real possibility we're looking at Glints' lair as well. Glint being the champion of the Elder Dragon Kraukatoric, who turned rogue and died just 5 years before the events of the game. Don't forget that the patch is called Echoes of the Past, so some of this stuff that happened in the past is obviously very relevant. We get a couple of other shots of the Dermond Priory Basin with some weird magical looking apparatus. Probably the most important thing to note about this shot here of the Dermond Priory basement, as it would seem, library, is the roof again. Inscribed up there, you can see something looking very similar to our image from Omad's machine, with Tyria depicted in the center, and 6 orbs around it, 6 circular things, each marked by the Priory, with some New Crichton character. They definitely seem to stand for the various Elder Dragons. For example, where we had Mordremoth before, is marked with an M, Jormag is marked with a J, Kraukatoric with a K, Zaitan with a Z, and Primordus with a P. The last one, in the top left, is marked with an S. Well, what Elder Dragon starts with S? We don't know. That's the Deep Sea Dragon. So it looks like we certainly now finally have the first letter of the name of the Deep Sea Dragon, which is a mystery that's been going for years and years. What's most interesting to me in this final shot is the use of this sand timer. Now, we have just seen Marjorie and Casimir in what looks like Glints' lair that was said to supposedly be hidden within a single grain of sand in the Crystal Desert, or later from the Edge of Destiny book, something a bit more vague about the entire desert. But whatever the case may be, I do think it's slightly more than a coincidence we're seeing them use this device to maybe get inside. And the very last moment of the trailer is it shattering open and the portal presumably lying await for us. Very exciting. Echoes of the Past starts on the 14th. That's 2 weeks away. And what else is there to say, really? I can't wait to see it. I hope you guys check out the Abaddon stuff tomorrow, because this is a huge character. In many respects, one of the biggest, most important characters from the first game. And how is he relevant now in the living world? Well, I guess we'll have to find out. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of the trailer, and I guess I'll see you next time.